Hello everyone, Spaniard here. So, 3rd of November 2020, and over here on Blighty, within the corporation known as the United Kingdom, another corporation called the Government, HM Government, Her Majesty's Government, at Her Majesty's pleasure, right, has announced that there's going to be a lockdown, okay? Now, look, this is all going... Certainly those of you that have woken up to this and have been on this page and have conducted your research, you'll be the ones that most likely don't wear masks because you know that you don't have to. And even in their rules, that's in the corporation rules, that's according to the government corporate policy, which applies to all government corporate employees. That's one way of looking at it, or applies to all of those that are legal entities. Okay, that's all that policy applies to. That's all those acts apply to, is legal entities, artificial entities, corporate souls, legal fictions. Barristers and solicitors will be operating around that world, but that's all that those rules apply to. Okay, that's the land of the dead entity, the corporation, corpse as in corporation, right? So in the land of the dead, those acts, those rules apply to legal fictions, artificial entities, corporate souls. They don't apply to man or woman unless man or woman agrees to be bound by them. In other words, man or woman must agree to take a step down, okay, to the status of a corporation, and must agree, i.e. consent, to be bound by those rules.
The way we police in the UK, the way we police is by consent. The way we police is by consent, consent.
Now, how do I know this? Well, I've got two eyes and I have read the Acts of Parliament, and not one Act of Parliament, or in other countries, depending on which state you think you're affiliated with, it could be called code. Right? So in the States, you call them codes. Well, why are they called codes? Well, because they're written in code. Now, how do you decipher the code? Easy. You go to the code, you look at the interpretation section or the definition section, you get the meanings of the words, and you apply the meanings of the words to the code. Hey presto, you decipher the code. Really easy. Same with Acts of Parliament. You go to the interpretation or the definition section or the meanings section, you get the meanings of the words and you apply the meanings to the words. And there you will see that not one of them applies to man or woman. They apply to, I will repeat, artificial entities, corporate souls, legal fictions.
The way we police is by consent, consent.
Obviously, those in legal land who have studied this ought to have been aware of this since the day that they studied everything or began studying everything. Because even in legal textbooks, as is going to be coming up on the screen, you will see that they make it quite clear that they apply, right? They, a third party distinct from you, right, man or woman, they apply, within the legal industry, they apply this thing called a legal personality to you. They attach it to you. Well, they can't attach it to you unless you agree.
The way we police is by consent.
The fear-mongering continues with regards to COVID-19, the coronavirus, the lockdown, all this bullshit, right? Obviously, those that are wearing masks are either very, very scared, and, no shit. I mean, the fear of God has been put into these people. They've been traumatized. They've been terrorized by what are in effect terrorists operating as, or posing as MPs and scientists and quangos and outside bodies such as the WHO, and I'm not talking about the pop group, I'm of course talking about the World Health Organization, and of course other globalists and other parties that stick their noses in and try to direct proceedings, all of which is apparently the activity of a terrorist according to the definitions of terrorist. Those poor people who are walking around with the masks have not only been scared shitless, but are clearly unaware of the difference between law and statute, or law and code.
The way we police is by consent.
Now, an Act of Parliament, as it's called over here in the corporation known as the United Kingdom, and that is a corporation, it's just an idea, it's a concept, it's a legal entity, if you like, which doesn't exist in reality, because you can't tell me that this kingdom is united. So therefore the United Kingdom is just a concept, it doesn't exist in reality. And in fact it was created by, I think it was 5 bits of paper. But the United Kingdom exists only in your head, as a concept, as an idea, and on paper. Okay, it's 2-dimensional. It exists in the land of the dead because it is inanimate. Okay, all legal entities exist only in your head and on paper. They are inanimate, 2-dimensional world, land of the dead. Okay, you know, as Theresa Mary May made quite clear, you know, people are policed by consent. Likewise, statutes only gain or carry the force of law with the consent of the governed. In other words, you have to agree to be governed. You have to agree to be subservient. If you don't agree, it doesn't apply.
The way we police is by consent, consent.
Now, could it be that a certain group of people are going to get their promised land? And what is the promised land? Now, for those of you that believe that this is all beginning to shape up and look like something from the Bible. In other words, you know, those parties that seem to have influential positions almost seem to be working from a script. I wonder if that's why it's called scripture. But, you know, as they seem to roll out and perform the script on the world stage, okay, where everyone plays their part, you know, I think we have to bear in mind some very important things, right? Number one, this script is being played out in the land of the dead. It's in corporate land, legal fiction land, right? Legal entity land, not reality. Now, a lot of people out there are so scared that they are bringing it into reality. They're making it real, but it doesn't have to be real. What if all these threats of all these potential threats that, you know, they're going to be demanding to take your property and take ownership of all your property so that you can't own property? Where's that going to apply? Well, from what I can see, it's only going to apply in legal land or the land of the dead or corporate land. It's not in reality, it's in 2-dimensional land. That's their promised land. Let them have control of it. Let them keep it. Why do you want to operate in the land of the dead as a legal entity? Why do you want to operate there? We need to operate in reality. So could it be that actually there's nothing to worry about at all? Well, that's probably the case, as long as you understand the difference between a legal entity and a man or a woman. As long as you understand the difference between a corporation and a man or a woman. As long as you understand the difference between a dead entity and a man or a woman. As long as you understand the difference between 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. As long as you understand the difference between a fiction and reality.
Is there anybody out there? Can you hear the sounds? Is there anybody listening to what's going down? Send the SOS out to the crowded faces. Send the SOS out to my favorite haven.
Teleport my skeleton across the freeways, barcode DNA. Roll the new age automated love. Charge it on my credit card. Toxic terrors buried in my front yard. Consciousness streams instantly. Upload my plastic philosophy. I'm hopscotching through the graveyard avenues, counting up the murders on the straight-faced daily news.
Hello tomorrow, come and shake my hand. Let's start the party in the promised land. Is there anybody in here who would dare look twice? Is there anybody watching all the horror show sites? Send the SOS out to the paradise faces. Send the SOS out to the radiated haven.
Hijack the history in the dungeon. Build a brave new world for the plundering. Shrink wrap romance. Big spending, automated payments. Never ending. Consciousness fades instantly. Download my favorite personality. I'm cruising through the skyscraper wilderness. Tally up the crimes and the lawless emptiness.
Hello tomorrow, get up and dance. Let's join the party. Come and take my hand. Wave your last goodbye. Wave your last goodbye.
I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out right now.
Is there anybody anywhere in the sea of alienation? Is there anybody anywhere in this crowded isolation? Send the SOS out to the sterilized faces. Send the SOS out to my artificial havens.
Transmit my brain waves to the landfill. Single-serving weaponry for the next kill. Automated fantasies, gotta feel connected. Binary signals pull me from the exit. Consciousness breeds heresy. Plug in the latest dose of idiocy. I'm wandering through a two-dimension wannabe, losing my grip on a physical reality.
Hello tomorrow, come and shake my hand. Let's start the party in the promised land. Hello tomorrow, get up and dance. Let's join the party. Come and take my hand.
I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out right now. I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out right now. I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out right now. I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out, I'm cashing out.
Business news now, and the Bank of England have announced interest rates are set to
I'm
rise.
sorry, Paul, I'm going to have to interrupt you there. We're just getting reports of some astonishing breaking news. It appears that an invasion of the Earth by an unknown but vastly powerful extraterrestrial aggressor is underway. Details are sketchy, but reports are pouring in from across the world of vast, metallic, crab-like creatures laying waste to all they encounter.
So, a massive and unstoppable alien attack threatens the Earth. What's your reaction? Are you affected by the end of civilization as we know it? What's your perspective? Maybe you live on Earth or know someone who does. How do you feel about it? Email us with your thoughts on your imminent molecular evaporation at bbc.co.uk/emergency apocalypse address, all one word, and let us know.
And already this issue seems to be one that's provoked a lot of comment. Lucinda Richards from London asks, will these so-called aliens be required to pay the congestion charge? Somehow I think not. It's one rule for us and another rule for alien beings.
And Gerard from Dover called our letterline number to say, as someone approaching my 80th birthday, I think I'm entitled to comment, 'twas ever thus. I can remember when a certain Mr. Hitler bethought himself to overthrow this sceptred isle, and like him, I think these aliens might find that simple British folk are rather harder to conquer than... And then it just tails off into screams.
A quick update for any of you for some reason more interested in the news than what some people who don't know think about the news. London has fallen to the aliens. But more importantly, I can also tell you that Sophie from Manchester says, say what you like about the alien killer crabs, but by God, they can organise an invasion. We have a lot to learn from them, though we'd better be quick.
And lastly, on a lighter note, Carl from Oundle writes, "Where's Doctor Who when you need him? In fiction, I imagine."
He's right there, worse luck.
Yes, indeed, because we're running out of time, both on the programme and just generally. My producer tells me that the giant alien crabs have breached TV Centre and will imminently vaporise us all.
And remember, if you want to see that for yourself, why not log on to our behind-the-scenes webcam? Simply go to bbc.co.uk/watchusfry, all one word, and click on...